HarperCollins presents Lily Bennett's Bucket List by Katherine Dyson, read by Brydon. Chapter 1. Lydia Grey had become so accustomed to bad dates that she didn't even flinch at the unexpected warmth of someone else's tongue in her mouth. The man smelt nice enough, fresh and masculine, and he kissed with a vigour which she was sure came from a place of passion, but something about the rhythm of his movement and the firm grip of his hand on her shoulder left her cold. His name was Matt, or maybe it was Mark, she wasn't sure. He'd introduced himself, of course, but Lydia had been so distracted that she'd only half heard him, because Matt or Mark had a strange quirk in one of his eyebrows, and from the very beginning, Lydia had not been able to take her eyes off it. The hair seemed to change direction somewhere in the middle, growing straight upwards right at the apex of the arch before falling back into a taper, as would be expected. It gave him a strange expression, one of perpetual intrigue, perhaps with an underlying note of something more sinister. And, quite unfortunately, that one unruly eyebrow seemed to be the only thing about him in which Lydia had any interest at all. He'd talked almost solidly about himself for somewhere close to an hour, but Lydia had zoned out after a minute or two, making sure to nod at what felt like the appropriate times, and occasionally muttering, "Absolutely," followed by a small sound, something like merp or mart, maybe. Something she hoped was vague enough to fall anywhere between Matt and Mark, as she'd forced her expression into a smile and tried to ignore the shrink of her shoulders away from the casual arm he'd wrapped about them. Lydia probably should have asked him to repeat his name when she didn't hear it the first time, but she hadn't. She'd been much too distracted by his jaunty eyebrow. And when he'd leaned in to kiss her a few minutes ago, that damn eyebrow was all she could think about. This was the way it always happened for Lydia. Every date, every man. They were fine until they weren't. The slight curl of her lip away from her teeth almost imperceptible as she noticed things about them. Small things, usually. Small, sometimes tiny details which all added up to mean one crucial thing, that Matt or Mark was not the man Lydia really wanted to be kissing. He pulled away from her at that point, his eyes opening slowly as the hint of a smile pulled at his lips. "Wow," he said roughly. "What are you doing to me?" She couldn't begin to say. She wasn't sure she'd been doing anything at all. But she plastered a smile on her face that she hoped looked genuine and shrugged. He seemed to take her silence as contentment, and she forced herself to relax as he leaned back into her. She tried to go with the flow, tried to mentally will herself into feeling something, and when very little feeling arose in return, a small sigh escaped into Matt or Mark's open mouth before she could hold it back. His lips tightened then, into the whisper of a smile, and she felt his free hand move to the curve of her lips and tighten, his grip possessive in a way she wasn't sure she liked at all, because Lydia Grey had already promised her life to a man in the presence of God and both of their families, and she was not a woman who easily went back on a promise. She didn't like the word divorce, but she couldn't deny that it had become easier to say over the passing months. The first time had been like a knife twisting up into her gut. "So, you want a divorce?" she'd gritted out, the swell of her tears cutting off the word before the final syllable. And all it had taken was a single nod to undo her completely. Adam Grey had been her first love, her soulmate, her best friend for more than half their lives, and with one small nod he'd burned 2 decades of their shared history to the ground. But that was a 1.5 years ago now, and though Lydia had promised their daughter that she would move on, there was no doubt in her mind that she was still absolutely and completely in love with her husband.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?